Turning overseas now, at least 11 people have been killed and hundreds injured in a weekend of clashes between Egyptian security forces and protesters. The violence was centered in Cairo's Tahrir Square, the home to another popular uprising earlier this year. Elizabeth Palmer is there.
For the second day in a row, protesters fought Egyptian riot police, today backed up by soldiers in a running battle that lasted hours. The battleground once again was Tahrir Square in the heart of Cairo, the epicenter of the vast popular uprising last spring which toppled Egypt's president Hosni Mubarak. Today, in what looked like a replay of scenes from 10 months ago, the wounded and the dead were taken to makeshift field hospitals set up by volunteers. We don't have precise figures, says Dr. Ahmed Tawfiq, who's been on duty since yesterday, but at least 600 injured have come to the hospital. Demonstrators showed off tear gas canisters and rubber bullet casings they say came from the security forces' attack. Egyptians were out in their thousands this weekend because they're frustrated and angry. An emergency military council took power back in February temporarily. It's still in power. And the demonstrators think the army is dragging its feet, reluctant to give way to democracy. Before the year is out, says this man who speaks for the crowd, power must be handed back to civilians. This military authority has to end. By nightfall, a hard core of demonstrators and activists had taken back the square and are now locked in an uneasy standoff with the police.
The first round of Egypt's multi-step elections is supposed to go forward next Monday. In an apparent effort to calm things down, the provisional government today announced that those elections would go forward on schedule in spite of the violence. Russ?
Elizabeth Palmer in Cairo. Thank you. Tens of thousands poured into the streets of Damascus today to show their support for President Bashar al-Assad. But to opponents, he's seen as a brutal dictator for ordering the crackdown on Syria's 8-month uprising. In a rare interview, a defiant Assad blamed the bloodshed on militants and vowed to crush them.
Whenever you have militants, you have killing. So the role of the government is to fight those militants in order to restore the stability and to protect the civilians.
And there's late-breaking news tonight here in New York City. Mayor Michael Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Ray Kelly have announced the arrest of a man for allegedly plotting to build and detonate bombs that would target politicians, government employees, and military personnel returning from Afghanistan.
The suspect was a so-called lone wolf, motivated by his own resentment of the presence of American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as inspired by al-Qaeda propaganda. He was not part of a larger conspiracy emanating from abroad.
He talked about bombing post offices in around Washington Heights and police cars in New York City, as well as a police station in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Here at home, San Francisco police arrested 6 Occupy movement protesters following a confrontation early today in front of the Federal Reserve Bank. Meanwhile, 2 campus police officers at the University of California at Davis were placed on leave today in the wake of a controversial pepper spraying incident that also has the school's chancellor under fire. Ben Tracy has the story.
The video is shocking. Students at the University of California, Davis huddled on the ground in protest. Police then begin shooting pepper spray into their faces. Some students scream in pain, while others chant, "Don't shoot students!" The students were part of the larger Occupy movement, railing against everything from big banks to tuition increases. The UC Davis chancellor promised to investigate the police response.
It's very unexpected and very sad and really very inappropriate, I would say.
But when students stormed the news conference demanding to be heard,
sorry, I think we have to stop it now.
The chancellor disappeared for 3 hours.
You can leave in peace.
Students called for her to come out, and when she finally did, they made their point, sitting in complete silence during her long walk to her car. The use of pepper spray by police in Portland is also being questioned. On Thursday, 20-year-old Liz Nichols, seen here in this video, was protesting outside Chase Bank. Police put a club to the 5-foot-tall woman's throat and then gave her a face full of pepper spray.
It was just burning. It felt like my face, my ears, my hands were on fire. And after they sprayed me, I couldn't open my eyes.
Pepper spray has become an increasingly common weapon for police in their efforts to control Occupy protesters across the country. Yet there are questions about whether it is excessive force. At UC Davis, 2 police officers are now on administrative leave as the school investigates. So far, the chancellor plans to keep her job.
I don't believe that it's appropriate for me to resign at this point.
While silent, many of her students loudly disagree. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Coming up next.